Today we are going to start talking about slope and graphing lines. So all of this is from your past. It just may be a little foggy. So we're just going to clear away that fog and try to get you to remember. All right, so slope is indicated by a little tiny m, and we have several ways of thinking of slope. Your vertical change over your horizontal, rise over run, and then this formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to find the slope of these graphs. Now, I apologize because my printer is having issues making the grid, but I think we'll be able to do it. So I'm going to show you two different ways of how you can do this. So one thing that's important is that you remember slope is defined as rise over run. I also like to think of it as fall over run. But it's very important that you realize that you have to rise first or you have to fall first. I always like to count from left to right, but I'm also going to go right to left so you can see that. Just remember you have to rise or fall first. So to get from this left point to this right point, I am going to rise, and you don't count until you start moving. So once you've moved a space, that's when you can count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I rise 6, and since I went up, that is a positive 6. And I go right, 1, 2, 3. And since I went right, that's a positive 3. Now, one thing about slope is a fraction, and you always want to reduce it because we always reduce fractions. And 6 divided by 3 is 2. And you could put 2 over 1, but 2 over 1 is the same thing as 2. Okay, now I'm going to find this going from right to left. If I count from right to left, I fall, and I fall down 6. So if I fall 6, that's a negative 6. And then I go left 3. Well, if you go left, that's also a negative. And a negative 6 divided by a negative 3 is a positive 2. So it doesn't matter if you go left to right or right to left, you'll get a slope of 2 no matter what. But it's very important that you have to rise first or fall first. When you're just plotting a point, parentheses, you go left or right first. So that's why this is sometimes confusing. Okay, so a couple things I just want to make sure that you remember. If you ever go up or right, those are positive movements. So when I counted up, that was a positive 6, and when I counted right, that was a positive 3. But if you ever count down or left, those are negative motions. So when I counted down, that was negative, and when I counted left, that was negative. Okay. Looking at number 2. I'm going to go from left to right, and that's just because that's how I always do it. So to get from left to right, we fall down 1, 2, 3, 4. Because I fell, that's a negative 4. And I go right 6. And I can tell it's 6 because it's right here at the 6, and I was at 0. And because I went right, that's a positive 6. Well, I can divide both of these by 2, and that makes a slope of negative 2/3. And if I counted from right to left, I'd get the exact same answer. Okay, looking at this next one, I'm going to count from left to right, and I fall down 1, 2, 3, 4. So since I fell, that's a negative 4. And I go to the right, 1, 2, 3. And because I went right, that's a positive 3. Now, if this fraction could reduce, I would reduce it, but since it can't, that's its answer. And we never write slope as a mixed number, so I would not write this as negative 1 1/3. And that's because of the definition of slope. being rise over run or fall over run. The top number is what you go up or down, and the bottom number is what you're going left or right. Okay, so these bottom two, I'm going to give you memory devices for how to figure them out. I'm also going to show you how to find them mathematically. Okay, so first I'm just going to pick 2 points on this line. It doesn't matter where. So I'm going to pick there and right there. Okay, so mathematically, to get from this point to this point, I don't rise or fall any because I'm already level with it. So my rise is 0. But I do run 2 to get to it. Well, 0 divided by 2. 0 divided by 2. 2 times what makes 0? 2 times 0 makes 0. So 0 divided by 2 is 0. If I had to use my calculator, I could put in 0 divided by 2, and sure enough, I get 0 for an answer. Okay, let me do number 5 mathematically, and then I'll come back and I'll show you some memory devices. Okay, so I'm going to put 2 points on this line. It doesn't matter where they are. I'm just going to put them there and there. Okay, so this time I rise up 2, but after I rise up 2, I'm already on the dot, so I don't have to go right or left. So my run is 0. Well, mathematically, let's see about this. 2 divided by 0. 0 times what number makes 2? Does 0 times 2 make 2? No. Does 0 times 0 make 2? No. 0 times anything makes a 0, not a 2. Mathematically, I can't do this. So this is called undefined. So the slope of this line is undefined. And if I was to use my calculator, I would put in 2 divided by 0, 2 divided by 0, and you get this error message saying that you can't divide by 0. So that error message means undefined. Okay, so now I'm going to teach you some memory devices. So first we have slope dude, which you may remember from your past. Okay, so we have when a line goes downhill from left to right, that's negative slope. When we have a line go uphill from left to right, that's positive slope. When we have a vertical line, we just saw that that was undefined slope, so I make a little U for his nose. And when we have a horizontal line, that is 0 slope. So this is our little slope dude to help us remember. So if you ever see a line going downhill from left to right, the slope needs to be negative when you're done. Like number 2 and number 3, they went downhill from left to right. And do you see how our slope was negative when we were done? But if a line goes uphill from left to right, it needs to be positive slope. So see this one is going uphill from left to right, and sure enough, our slope is positive. And then vertical lines are undefined, and horizontal lines, the slope is 0. Another way you can remember horizontal and vertical lines is Hoy and Vux. And I imagine a lot of you saw this when you were freshmen, but if you didn't, I'm going to show you. So Hoy and Vux. Hoy stands for horizontal line, so this is a horizontal line, 0 slope, which we just saw, horizontal line has 0 slope, and it has a y equals equation, which we're going to need in another day or so. A Vux is a vertical line, undefined slope, and an x equal equation. So Hoy and Vux can also help you remember. Okay, so that's how you find the slope from a graph. You just simply count your rise over your run or your fall over your run. All right, now we're going to find slope from 2 points. And we're going to follow this formula, which it looks scary, but it's not. It just tells you to subtract your y's, put your division bar, and subtract your x's. So first of all, we need to make sure you understand that x's are the first number and y's are the second number. Now, because this is the first point, this is x1, y1, and because this is the second point, it's x2, y2. Okay, so I'm going to do exactly what this formula tells me. Now, you'll notice that there is a subtraction sign in between the y's and a subtraction sign in between the x's. So we do have to follow that. Okay, so it says take y2 and my y2 is this negative 10. Put your subtraction sign, and then write down y1, and y1 is this positive 5. Okay, then your division bar. Write down x2, which is 7. Put your subtraction sign, and then x1, and x1 is a negative 2. But do you remember that a minus a negative back to back becomes a plus? So the formula has subtraction signs in it, but if you end up subtracting a negative number, it will turn into a plus sign. Okay, so now we work out the numerator. Negative 10 minus 5 is negative 15. Put your division bar back, and then work out the denominator. 7 plus 2 is 9. And then if you can reduce, you want to reduce. And I can divide both of these numbers by 3. So negative 15 divided by 3 makes negative 5. And 9 divided by 3 makes 3. And that's my slope, a negative 5/3. Pretty easy formula, as long as you remember what's your x1 and what's your x2, etc. All right, so let's label again. Remember, the first numbers are your x's, and the second numbers are your y's. And this first point is x1, y1, and the second point is x2, y2. All right, now we're going to do exactly what the formula says. It says write down your y2, and y2 is this positive 2 here. Put your subtraction sign, and then write down y1, and y1 is this negative 2. Put your division bar, write down x2, and x2 is this 4. Put your subtraction sign, and then x1 is this negative 2. Okay, I have a minus a negative, that's going to make a plus. A minus a negative, that's going to make a plus. So these both turned into pluses because I subtracted a negative number. Now let's work it out. What's 2 plus 2? 4. And then your denominator, what's 4 plus 2? 6. And then do you know what you can divide both of these numbers by? You can divide them both by 2. All even numbers can be divided by 2. So 4 divided by 2 makes 2, and 6 divided by 2 makes 3. And that's our slope, 2/3. What do you think? Pretty easy? Okay, let's look at number 3. So I'm going to label x comes first, and y comes second. Just like in the alphabet, x comes before y. This is my first point, so x1, y1. This is my second point, so x2, y2. All right, now let's do exactly what the formula says. So y2, 5, minus y1, which is negative 1. Put your division bar. x2, which is negative 3, minus x1, which is positive 3. This minus the negative back to back will make a plus, but I do not have a minus and negative back to back down here, so no pluses. So working it out, what is 5 plus 1? 6. Put your division bar. And what's negative 3 minus 3? Negative 6. 2 negatives add to make an even bigger negative. And then do you know what 6 divided by negative 6 is? Negative 1. And that's our slope, and we're done. Okay. Let's just try another one here. Let's look at number 4. Okay, let's see if we can do it without labeling. y2 minus y1. So 1 minus 0 over x2 minus x1. So 2 minus 2. What's 1 minus 0? 1. What's 2 minus 2? 0. Now what is this? Do you know? 1 divided by 0. Let me put in my calculator and take a peek. 1 divided by 0, error, it is undefined. Okay, so I have a little memory device to help you remember this when you're working these out mathematically. So do you see how undefined starts to look like the word under? That looks like the beginning of the word under. Okay, so if the 0 is under the fraction bar, it's undefined. Just think of this as under. So the 0 is under, undefined, under, undefined, under, undefined. Okay, and do you remember what a line looks like if the slope is undefined? Well, it would be Mr. Vuck's vertical line, undefined slope, and x equals equation. This would be a vertical line straight up and down. Okay, let's look at this guy. All right, y2 minus y1. 8 minus 8 over x2 minus x1. -4 minus -6. Because I have a minus and negative back to back, that's going to make a big old plus. Okay, working it out. 8 minus 8, that's 0. -4 plus 6, that's 2. I subtract, take the sign of the bigger number. Well, what's that? 0 divided by 2. Well, let's see if I can't remember. That is 0. So if the 0 is on top, it's 0. But if the 0 is under the fraction bar, it's undefined. So under, undefined. But if 0 is on top, it's 0. Well, what does that line look like if the slope is 0? Well, that is Mr. Hoy. Horizontal line, 0 slope, a y equals equation. So this would be a horizontal line, like that. Okay, now we're going to do a little graphing. So first things first, we want all of our equations to look something like this. Y equals mx plus b. M, the number smushed against your x, that's your slope. That is what you rise over what you run, or it's what you fall over what you run. And then B is your y-intercept, and that's where the graph touches the y-axis. And think of B as begin. We are going to begin by plotting the B, the y-intercept. So the first point is going to be somewhere on the y-axis, as long as the equation looks something like this. All right, so looking down here, sure enough, this looks like y equals mx plus b. So as long as it's in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, we are going to start with the y-intercept. And remember, the y-intercept is the b, it's the number behind the x. And the number behind the x is -4. So I am going to plot -4 on the y-axis before I do anything else. So I go down 1, 2, 3, 4. So as long as our equation looks like y equals mx plus b, plot the y-intercept on the y-axis, then take care of slope. So slope is the number in front of the x. Remember, every number is understood to be over a positive 1. So my slope is -2 or -2 over 1. So remember, slope is rise over run or fall over run. So the top number is up or down. The bottom number is left or right. So since my top number is negative, I go down. And since my bottom number is positive, I go right. So from my y-intercept, I go down 2 and right 1. Down 2 and right 1. Well, if you ever run out of room, you can go opposite, which would be, instead of down 2 and right 1, it'd be up 2, left 1, up 2, left 1, up 2, left 1. Oops. Up 2, left 1. And then you can make your line nice and long, arrows on both ends. I did not connect those points very well. I do apologize. And there's graphing. Okay, looking at number 2. Our equation, sure enough, looks like it's in the form y equals mx plus b. So first thing we always plot is the y-intercept. And the y-intercept's the b, the number behind the x. So our y-intercept is a positive 1. So I'm going to go to 1 on the y-axis. And now I'm going to take care of slope. And slope is the m, the number smushed with the x, so slope is 2/3. Remember, slope is rise over run or fall over run. So since the top number is positive, I'm going to go up. And since the bottom number is positive, I'm going to go right. So from our y-intercept, I'm going to go up 2 and right 3. 1, 2, 3. Up 2 and right 3. 1, 2, 3. If I have to reverse, instead of up 2 and right 3, it'd be down 2 and left 3. Down 2 and left 3. And see how it makes the same line? Okay, let's see if I can connect these points a little bit better. Yay! That's pretty. Okay. Looking at number 3. Sure enough, it looks like y equals mx plus b. So y is by itself. I've got a number smushed with an x, and I have the number in the back. So that number in the back is what I'm going to plot first. It's called the y-intercept, and it is a positive 2. So I am going to plot a positive 2 on the y-axis. The next thing I'm going to do is look at slope, and slope is the m, the number smushed with the x, and my slope is negative 3, but you can think of that as negative 3 over 1. So since my top number is negative, I will not go up, I will go down, but my bottom number is positive, so I will go right. So from our y-intercept, down 3, 1, 2, 3, and right 1. Boop. Let's do it again. Down 3, 1, 2, 3, and right 1. Boop. And if I have to reverse, instead of down 3 and right 1, it'd be up 3 and left 1. Up 3 and left 1. And then I can make my line nice and long with arrows on both ends. Now, this next one tends to trick people. Now, it probably won't trick you today, but it may trick you in a day or so. Typically, when I teach the current lesson, people are like, oh, I get that. But then later, when I start mixing things up, they get confused. So first of all, it does look like y equals mx plus b. The y is by itself. I've got the equal sign. I've got my slope smushed against my x. The problem is you don't see the b. So when you don't see a number in the back, it's understood to be 0. And the reason for that is if I just see 4, the number in the back is understood to be a plus 0, because what is 4 plus 0? 4. So when you just see a number, the number behind it is always a 0, because that number plus 0 just gives you the number. Okay, so the number in the back when you don't see it is a 0. So my y-intercept is 0, so I'm going to plot 0 on the y-axis. And then my slope is still the number smushed with the x, so my slope is 3/4. Because my top number is positive, I will go up, and because my bottom number is positive, I'll go right. So from our y-intercept, up 3, 1, 2, 3, and right 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do it again. Up 3, 1, 2, 3, and right 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if I had to go reverse, instead of up 3 and right 4, it'd be down 3 and left 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm just practicing both motions because you never know. Make those lines nice and long, arrows on both ends. Okay, just a couple more. 3 more. All right, looking at number 5. It does look like y equals mx plus b. I got y by itself. I've got the equal sign. My m is smushed against my x, and there is a number smushed against the x. We just don't see it. And then b is behind the x, and we don't see it either. So let's just talk about that. Who did we say the number was back in the back when you don't see it? It's a 0. But who's the number in front when you don't see it? It's a 1. So this happens to be a negative 1. So when you don't see the number in the back, it's 0, but when you don't see the number in front, it's a negative 1. So which of those is the y-intercept? The y-intercept is the 0. The y-intercept is the b, the number behind the x. So our y-intercept is 0. So I'm going to go to 0 on the y-axis. And then our slope is the number smushed with the x, which is negative 1, or negative 1 over positive 1, because every number is understood to be over a positive 1. So since my top number is negative, we will not go up, we will go down. but my bottom number is positive, so we will go right. So from the y-intercept, down one, right one, down one, right one, down one, right one, down one, right one, or reverse, up one, left one, up one, left one. And we can make our line nice and long arrows on both ends. All right, now look at 6 and 7. Do they look different to you? They do. They do not look like y equals mx plus b. Okay, so it's time for me to get something in your heads. If you see an x and a y in the equation, it's going to make a diagonal line. As long as you don't see any exponents like x squared or x cubed or anything strange. Okay, so x and y makes a diagonal line. So every time you see an x and a y, it's going to make a diagonal line. X and y makes a diagonal line. So every time there's an x and a y, it's a diagonal line. You're going to find the y-intercept first, plot it on the y-axis, and then figure out your slope and rise and run or fall and run. So that's what you do if there's an x and a y. X and y makes a diagonal line. X and y makes a diagonal line. X and y makes a diagonal line. But if there is not an x and a y, it is not diagonal. It's either hoy or vux. So who do you think has the y, hoy or vux? Hoy does. Horizontal line, 0 slope. Okay, so the slope is 0, and a y equals equation, and that's exactly what we see. So first we're going to go to where y is a 3. Well, this is my y-axis, so I go up 1, 2, 3. That's where my y is a 3. And I want to make a horizontal line, and horizontal is this way. All right, now the y-intercept is where the graph touches the y-axis. And where does my pink graph touch the y-axis? At 3. Okay, last one. You do not see an x and a y, so it's not diagonal, so it's either hoy or vux. Well, vux is the one with the x. So it's a vertical line, undefined slope. So down here, my slope is undefined. And it has an x equal equation, which is what you see, x equals. Okay, so first we need to go to where x is -4. So this is the x-axis. So let's go to where x is -4. So I go left, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then vertical is straight up and down. Like somebody's vertical jump, they would be jumping straight up and down to see how high they can jump. Now your y-intercept is where the graph touches the y-axis. Now, does my pink line ever touch the y-axis? No. So there's not a y-intercept at all. Sometimes people tell me that the y-intercept is 0, but that would have meant that the graph would have touched right here at 0. And this pink graph is not touching the y-axis at all, so there is no y-intercept. And that's all for this lesson. Smiley face!